Hi everyone, welcome to Gemini season. From now all the way till 20th of June, we will have sun shining in the tropical zodiac sign of Gemini. Gemini is all about wit, intellectual conversations, and hobnobbing with others in some way, interacting with people in your immediate community. And that is, of course, not easy right now with the current situation we are in. But Gemini is a mutable sign. Mutable sign finds a way, it finds new ways of doing things. It's a flexible sign. So, as an archetype, as all of us are getting the benefit of sun being in the zodiac sign, we will all find new ways of being when it comes to our communication skill set, when it comes to the way we interact with our immediate surrounding. It is a time to mutate away from the old and move to a new way of being. And during the season of Gemini, we learn the new ways of doing things, new ways of interaction, new ways of learning things. It's a zodiac sign which represents cadent part of our chart, a growth part of our chart. And this will become even more emphasized because we have Rahu or North Node in the zodiac sign of Gemini for the next 18 months. Wherever North Node or Rahu is for the next 18 months, that becomes our source of growth. That becomes the area of our life where we are ready for new skills, where we'll get new opportunities, where we'll get new experiences that will grow us both materially as well as emotionally. We will be looking to get new skill set during this time, and you'll see sort of a preview of the next 18 months in terms of where your source of growth will come from. And I'm not saying that everything will be great or exciting only in the month of June, because June is a volatile month. We have to be looking at the situation with our eyes open. What we are getting into will be a volatile month. We have a very strong set of eclipses that are about to begin in the month of June. I spoke about it in detail in the April note that I put out on the eclipses. I'll put it in the comments as well if you have not looked at it. It's easier for me to write about global events on Facebook because there's a lot of things which are happening right now. So as and when I'm able to interpret them, I type that out well in advance to you on Facebook. So if you are not part of the group, I would suggest you to please join, or if Facebook is not your thing, I'm on multiple medias, and that is Gemini season as well. We'll be all over the media. There'll be different media sources, new communication channels, social channels that we all will be trying. So I have the same notes out on Tumblr, on Reddit, on Instagram, whatever is your social outlet. Feel free to communicate through that to me. But look at that note, and we do have a little bit of volatile energy coming through. I'll briefly speak about it now, and then we'll go into a detailed eclipse video which will be next to this, where we'll go deeper into that. But the 5th of June eclipse will be very volatile from global events perspective. I've written about it, I spoke about it in the Venus retrograde video as well. It's a time when the diplomatic relationships go through a little bit of tough period. That's an understatement to say. We had this in the past as well. It is an eclipse which is attached with extreme volatility in global relationships, and that's the time when Venus retrograde will be at its warrior phase as well, transitioning from the goddess of love to goddess of war. We'll see diplomatic relationships go through a lot of volatility in the first 10-12 days of June during this eclipse. And this eclipse is also attached with travel incidents related to flights, related to planes, related to trains. So whatever sort of even domestic travel that is attached, we have to be very, very careful in that, as well as in driving during that time, because that eclipse comes with a Mars square, which is normally attached with accidents, unfortunately. And then at the end of June, we have Jupiter Pluto conjunction, which is happening from heliocentric perspective, which means that from the perspective of sun, we can see these two planets coming together, and that is massive from storm's perspective. because these are two physically, especially Jupiter from Mars perspective has huge amount of influence on global events and on environment particularly. So when Jupiter and Pluto are together, growth happens through crisis, but the crisis grows in size during this time. So we'll see both weather storms as well as economic storm during the course of this conjunction, which will start showing up even from middle of June, and it will peak in my view during end of June. But there is a clearing up for of old economy when Jupiter and Pluto meet together, as I mentioned in my note as well. It is like a prick of a bubble. The old economy gives ways to the new way of being. There's a focus that needs to be attached to the new way of doing things at this time. So our sense of expansion has to come from wherever Gemini is in our chart, because that's where the new opportunities will come. With North Node over here, we will walk our destiny path through inquisitiveness, through agility of mind, through communication devices, through using our voice and mind more. Approach to destiny and our lessons would be from mind and intellect, through learning more. We'll offer multiplicity because Gemini is a sign of variety. There'll be a variety of options that will come up as a result of this crisis and giving away of the old, but it will require new skill set. It will require reskilling, as it's called. And this season, Gemini season, needs to be dedicated to reskilling. It needs to be dedicated to reading, writing, learning about new things, communicating in new ways, trying new things. This is a mutable season of shift. We move from one season to another during Gemini season. Knowledge is acquired. Our mind is more open to look at both sides of the coin. So we look at different set of information. There is a lot of information that will come your way during this season. When Gemini season is happening and North Node exaggerates everything, Gemini season in general is information overload, but with North Node over here, it becomes quite extensive. A lot of information will come our way, and this is not discretionary information. There is not a whole lot of filter attached to the information, so we don't know what is right, what is wrong. But as long as we stay ourselves a little bit objective in the process, we'll be able to use that information for our advantage going forward. And it's the time when we have to sort of come out of our shell. We are already seeing that, and I wrote about it again in my previous notes as well, and in my previous videos, that after May we will look to come out of our shell to interact with people, because that's the road to success. We cannot be hermits over here. We have to be with other people in some ways, but it may not be physically. Gemini is all about communication devices, finding new ways of communicating with others, finding online social networks, finding friends who are online, finding a local community that you can connect with, who becomes your support system, who becomes the people, your tribe to walk with during this period. There's a need for clear thinking here. Our own mental attitude needs to go through shift over here, and it can be very, very helpful in pursuing our new path over here. The approach has to be of here and now. Still our mind and see the reality within you, and don't scatter this energy. Saturn is trying to streamline this gift of North Node in Gemini that we have been given during a very volatile period, to find the treasures in this crisis, to look through the information that is coming our way and find the relevant one which will help us move to a new way of doing things. This is not the time when we will specifically know what to go for. It's not a fixed or a cardinal energy. It's not like, let's go, this is it. It's the time of sifting and sorting and trying out things, being open to change, being open to growth, being open to learning things that are new in nature, trying and dipping all our 10 fingers in different pots at this time and coloring them with a different color, being a little bit like a child exploring the world over here. This is in the wheel, in the zodiac wheel, this represents primary education. So like a child in the primary education, trying on different subjects. We have not yet decided what our special interest would be, what would be our area of graduation. This is when we are exploring the world like a child. This is a stage of innocence, and innocence through not very innocent times, through times which have been turbulent in nature. It's not the way we would have liked it to come, but it's here now. So from a new moon in Gemini, which is happening right now at 2 degree of Gemini, just the child of Gemini, just born, sun just moved in Gemini and it met moon right there. Our emotions and our emotional practices met with the physical reality right there at the doorstep of the start of the season, saying, let's plant a seed of innocence. This is a degree which is a degree of innocence. It is polarized by eager expectation. There's a little bit of fantasy attached with that degree because Neptune is playing in as well, and Neptune is all about fantasy. We have Mercury, our mind, as well as Venus, our heart, currently being aspected by Neptune, which is dreamy energy. We don't know what is real, what is not. Is this hope or is this a mirage? Are things really going to get better, or we are just going into false hope right now? Any kind of hope, whether false or not, does not harm us to some extent. And this degree of new moon, which is happening right now, and it will be in effect for the next 2 weeks, is telling us to not judge the moment too harshly. Every new moon comes with possibilities of its own. So when the sun and moon coming together in Gemini is happening right now, and it will influence us for the next 2 weeks, it is asking us to be acceptable of a little bit of hope in the moment, being okay to discover what would normally be sort of unimaginable to some extent. And collectively, we are being told to not poke holes in the imagination at this stage. And I know it's a little bit of indulgent energy, and we have to walk that line of having this ability to go beyond our current existence, that hope which is can be seated at this point in time, not in reality. And the delusion or the deception that comes with it is a very thin line to be walked over here. But the degree of this new moon, of this new start, and something new that you're starting at this moment, it is asking you to not poke the holes of reality in that dream at the moment. It is represented in Samian astrology as Santa Claus fervently filling stockings, hanging in front of the fireplace. And there's a little bit of fervent attitude in doing that. It's deliberate. It's not a fantasy that comes out of nowhere. It is a fantasy that we need right now. It is a reception of new blessing that are dependent on our faith, on our sort of state of innocence and belief that it's possible. Something better is possible out of that. And the apparition is considered to vanish if we look intently or straight at it. We are told to not poke holes in something fantastical that we are thinking about. And Neptune dissolves our boundaries, and that's happening right now. And it unfortunately it has a negative connotation sometimes, because Neptune is deception in some shape or form. Every creativity has an underlying thought of deception. So Neptune in its negative manifestation is that people are deceiving each other. Information is not really well informed. It is a misinformed notion which people are publicizing, and there's just so much information going around. We don't know what is real, what is not. Similarly, in our own head, because Mercury, our mind, is currently being squared by Neptune as well. So we don't know what is real, what is not, whether this is real hope or it's not. There's confusion around it. But Neptune has its higher manifestation. It aims to dissolve our boundaries because it wants us to go beyond our current existence, our current limitation. It helps us to do things that we are normally frightened to do, even heroic in nature, and it dissolves what is actually already redundant in our life. It removes the things that are fake in our life, actually. So the higher manifestation of Neptune is to allow us to dream beyond the current existence, and some of it can look like a unimaginable thing. Neptune helps us have faith. Have faith. That is the underlying theme. Have faith in a future that is better than what you have right now. Have faith in going beyond our current existence and taking the step that will look frightening, even heroic right now. And not given to the lower energy of Neptune, which is deception, getting sucked into this negative news cycle or analysis that is sort of based in old belief system. South Node in Sagittarius, which we'll have for the next 18 months, is all about giving up the old belief system. There's a whole body of thought process that will exit our life in the next 18 months, and we'll see the preview of that with the first eclipse that is happening in the month of June itself. It removes the old ideology because we realize that it will not serve us well going forward. And Sagittarius is about faith as well. So sometimes the old belief system needs to be erased, and we need to get going with the new, get going in the face of fear, get going in the face of uncertainty, get going in the face of when things look they're not hopeful right now. And Gemini at the start of itself, it's such a fantastical sign. At the first degree of Gemini, right when you enter Gemini, there's a feeling of this glass bottom boat revealing undersea wonders. It's like discovering of the new, of the impossible. And it comes from a place of being compassionate to our own creativity, being compassionate to our own need to fly, being compassionate to our own ability to create a world of magic, an environment of magic. It needs us to get a little bit lighter with ourselves, even a little bit silly with ourselves to some extent, and not losing that childlike, belly laughter that we have, and this belief in marvel of life, imaginative play, wrapping yourself up in pleasant myth of life to some extent, versus the rude awakening. And we will have those. We cannot run away from what fate has for us, or what the eclipses will bring for us, and a little bit of rude awakenings which will come with us, a few bubbles that will burst because Jupiter and Pluto will be together, and they're known to burst certain bubbles. Especially for us, the old bubbles have to go away, they have to be removed, the fluff has to be removed, so for us to see what's real, what we can continue with, what we can hold on to for long term. But this self indulgent energy for the next 2 weeks is letting you um, explore what is beyond it, what is beyond the current moment that feels like crisis, that feels like things are not going in the direction I had originally planned for. Because we'll feel a little bit self indulgent during this time, mourning a little bit about the past, the things that could have happened, especially in our personal life. We'll feel like that because Venus is retrograde right now with Neptune. We'll feel that we are not creating what we truly love or what we truly wanted. But what is it that you truly want now? Because what you want is changing with this whole process. So, this new moon in Gemini is giving us the gift of imagination. It is introducing people to go back to that stage of exploration, that primary school feeling that we are just starting off and we don't know what we want to do going forward. We have not fixed a path for ourselves. And it is asking us to be introduce yourself to this new set of books, new set of knowledge, to walking, to being on a bike, and let the air, feel your face, with that sense of freedom that we don't know where we are going, but there is so much to be explored, there is so much to be thought of, there is so much to be started new from. We are subjected to change here, to adaptability, to restlessness even, and from that restlessness comes the change that we are looking for. This is conjunct the star Alcyone, which was known for Mercury of Sigmund Freud. This is like a third eye opening, insightfulness by not harshly judging our own self. There's a caution against ruthless judgment of your own imagination. And we have a potential for real insight if we don't judge our own self during this time. And that is a very strong underlying theme of it. But we have to move away from these cult feelings that are coming up, because South Node in Sagittarius the cults don't really serve us well over here. The expansiveness or the big picture things that we thought we are going for, the desire to sort of be part of a thought process is old. To be part of a new set of people who have a common knowledge in mind, have a skill set in mind, is the road to success here. We have to think about it from an analytical, practical perspective versus ideological perspective. Ideologies will spiritually support us, but they will not help us move forward materially with North Node in Gemini. The approach has to be to here and now, not to 30,000 feet opinion about things. And these eclipses and the new moon that is happening right now, there's a history to them. There's a history to them in 2012. So you can personally evaluate what happened at the time in your life, because you might see a next level of growth in that. You might be reviewing certain things that you used to love at the time right now as well. So 20th of May 2012 is when this new moon as well as the early June eclipse happened. So look at the time around May or June of 2012. What were the new things you did? They could be in the field of communication, it could be biking, it could be a new device that was bought. It's a time when I remember very clearly a lot of people completely shifted their life direction. I had the month of the biggest quits, I used to call. I mean, people just left what they were doing and moved to a new way of doing things at the time. And it was not so dramatic because we did not have the synods that we are having right now with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter all together, huddle up together, and they're completely changing the very framework of our existence, as we've been talking about since last year. And as they're doing that, we will see people completely shifting their life direction. Gemini season helps us explore the new, explore what's new, what's exciting, what brings you joy, what brings that childlike curiosity back into your life, what brings that verve to get up and do things, makes you restless for life again. And there are two ways to use this energy. The third eye opening or the insightfulness of the new is done in two ways. The star Alcyon, which is attached with this new moon that's happening right now and will be effective for the next 2 weeks, it's attached to two different kind of people. You know, Leonardo da Vinci, he was inventive, the artistic, the visionary, and sort of you have to think fantastical here. When Neptune is involved, we are dreaming the dream. We are looking for something that is looks impossible right now, even frightening right now to execute, but we are going for it on the basis of faith. And Leonardo da Vinci at 2 degree of this degree of innocence represents that. Then another was Jim Jones, the spiritual leader who took a flock of 500 followers to mass suicide. There's, spiritual vision gone wrong as well. So there will be both sides of the coin that we will see at play, whether it is delusion or artistic, whether it is fantastical or it's are we going for something that is not rational to some extent. We'll walk this fine line of imagination versus reality, rational versus ideal, private version of truth and reality, self-deception to some extent, and we'll see that in play right now. And it's part of the process. It's the part of the Neptune process to dissolve what's fake. So a lot of fake is created to be dissolved as well, and you have to protect yourself to some extent from that. Acknowledge the risk, acknowledge the opportunity, as well as acknowledge the risk. So when you're going for something that looks fantastical, that sort of makes you feel that this is the future, this is where I want to go, it excites me, it makes me want to wake up in the morning and do things and learn things and be that child in the primary school again, learning new things. Acknowledge the risks that come with it, acknowledge the downside of it, acknowledge that it will add to your life and it will require you to release something. And Neptune square does another excellent thing which is not very well known. It shows up in form of certain repressed talents and desires coming up, and some of that leads to the VPs, because you sort of get its expression can be both just crying for split milk, or just thinking, oh, I wanted to really wanted to do this in the past. I really thought I could become this, and I'm not this right now. There's a gap between what our dreams were and the reality that Neptune tries to show us, because it wants us to go for the ideal. And this ideal idea of career, the ideal idea of love, the ideal social structure in itself, and we can either look at that gap and try to find ways to bridge that gap, or we can feel victimized by it to some extent. So there is a repressed talent or desire that you'll find yourself suddenly bubbling up and showing up from all of this. And this will continue to June. We have Sun meeting Neptune as well around 11th of June, so it will show up physically in some ways. You'll find the dissonance between the reality, the here and now, and the ideal to some extent. And from that dissonance comes, when you know that gap, that's when you can work on it. That's when you can imbibe some of your fantastical ideas into your reality. So whatever is creative about you, whatever is ideal about you, whatever you wanted to do in the world and make a difference and sort of become that that childlike faith in life, without limits, without existential crisis, needs to be incorporated in how we are moving towards the future. We have to we are reminded to not lose that part of us. We are reminded to not give away that idealistic part of us as we move towards the future with this aspect. And that can come as the first contact of it, and you might have already experienced that, because Venus and Neptune have been clashing with each other most of May. I spoke about it in Venus retrograde video as well. You might have already felt that dissonance within yourself, and it shows up in form of victim syndrome sometimes longing for a past that did not happen. And there's this feeling within us that, like a third eye opening, that I'm not acknowledging a part of me that exists. And that part of you needs to be very much incorporated into whatever practical you're creating with North Node in Gemini over the course of next 18 months. And that's what the new moon is trying to do. It is trying to wake us up to that innocence within us, this idealistic part of us that Both needs to be part Mercury of the and new Venus economy is and out of not be bound given as up. well till about early June. Mercury is actually out of bounds till 9th of June, and out of bounds means exactly that, out of control. We don't know what to trust in terms of the validity of information when this happens, but it's also the time when our mind knows no boundaries. We don't want to accept any limitations, and from now to 9th of June you'll feel like that in your own thinking process. There's boundless creativity that comes out of it, abnormal unstable behavior to some extent, which can be branded like that because it's not socially acceptable. But there's this thin line, as I said, between the genius and the insanity that we are going to be walking during this time all the way till the eclipse of 5th of June, which you'll experience very strongly. Howard Stern, I don't know if many of you listen to him. Howard Stern is, I mean, I like him because maybe because I have Uranus on my ascendant, so I'm okay with the weird. He has his Mercury out of bounds. There's no limit to what he says or what he would not say. There's a creative talent which he has, which only comes out by dissolving his boundaries. He has to do his show on the radio because he doesn't want to be judged on face by others. He just wants to say what he needs to say on his mic without thinking about the audience. And Mercury out of bound is like that. It is a creative talent that comes up when you don't judge it, when you don't, point by point be questioning your own impossible dream that you have. It comes up when there's a creative talent which dissolves the boundary of what is normally possible. there's it is out of cultural norms, it is out of cultural norms of relationship, of feminism, of art, of pleasure. There's a bold expression of unique that happens, and you'll see that in people talking about their talent in creativity. You'll see that on the screen, you'll see it on the social media, you'll see it in the news with the kind of things that are getting published. People will have no limit to what they're saying anymore. There's unorthodox structure which comes up, quirky ways of expressing yourself, of relationships, of pleasure, new way of thinking that comes up. There's a talent that comes up out of not putting the boundaries on your own mind. But as usual, when Mercury is out of bound, out of control, there's hyperbole, there's exaggeration, there is imagination, as well as bizarre process of thinking that comes up. Venus is also out of bound. Venus is all about relationships, about music, about art, about sexuality outside the social norms. There'll be extravagance which will come out, breaking rules of relationship, intense need for lateral thinking, personal freedom, exceptional. And you'll see people not liking anymore, or that there's any boundaries being laid on their creativity. Uh, this is, looking at world in the way we have not looked before, in terms of creativity, in terms of fashion, in terms of style, in terms of food recipes, risking. And you'll find people risking their actual careers in the process of that, because you want to do what you love. When this happens, Venus out of bounds is heart without boundaries. You want to move to the things that your heart truly wants to, and that holds both in your financial existence as well as um, your relationships to some extent. And things that you thought were not possible before, information on things that you were, it's like, I don't know, I have this idea, I don't know how I'm going to get there. The impossible knowledge starts coming. The beautiful things come from giving away those boundaries, because Neptune gives beauty on after loss. It gives beauty after giving up something which is redundant. So as soon as we dissolve the fake, what emerges is fantastical and is beautiful. So seek beyond your boundaries during this time, and don't judge your own self, your own imagination, your own creativity, your own ambition at this time. And there will be plenty of people who will do that for you, because we'll have all of this energy being in conjuncted by Pluto and Jupiter. And you'll see that, you'll experience that in the coming days itself. On 25th of May, we have Mercury and Pluto making an in conjunction over here, which is like the old people, or ancestral, or your own authority in your life, or the bosses, or the people who sort of run the show. They're getting in the way of this, getting in the way of communication, getting in the way of commerce, where communication and travel, it needs to be effortless. And it's not because the authority or the rules or the regulations, they're coming in the way. There is need to do this. Despite that, there is need to compromise a little bit between the two, between this power centers in your life, and this mind of yours which is out of bound at this time. So Mercury, the out of bound Mercury, will meet Pluto and Jupiter between 25th and 26th of May. And we'll see that in the global events. Clearly, we'll see it in the global events. There'll be a clash between in how we speak. People will be saying things that they don't really mean. There'll be exaggeration of claims which will happen, and it will lead to the diplomatic issues that I spoke about in the Venus retrograde video in the early part of June, which will sort of accelerate this whole process of breaking old ways of doing and starting new ways of doing things. On 28th of May, we will have Mercury meet North Node. This is happening at the degree of free as bird, 29 degree of Gemini. This is pursuit of your destiny at a mental level. So there could be a communication that can come through. There could be a discussion, a chance meeting, a chance information coming your way, something that hints you towards what you need to do around 28th of May. And that is a destiny meeting you. It's sort of time to speak your destiny. So it will amp up your communication. It will amp up your mental awareness of what you want out of your life. It will increase your ability to communicate in matters related to your own destiny. So what you want to do, you will be amped up to talk about it, to interact with people, and some chance meeting, some chance information that comes out, it will it will boost your confidence in where you need to go. It will boost your intellectual ability to get there. It will boost your ability to find ways to get it. What my suggestion during this whole process is that there will be a clash between the old and the new. There is no question about that. As we go out of bound, we will clash with the rules, we will clash with the authorities, we will clash with the people who seem to have that power over our life and who would look like they're trying to undermine our confidence or our interest or, our own authority in some ways. There's a need to stay humble in this process. There's a need to in some ways communicate clearly what we want, but with compassion in the process. Everybody is going through this whole process. Nobody wants to give up the old power. Nobody wants to share their power that they have right now. So you will find a need to stay focused and humbled in the process, which will come. You would also find yourself being more successful if you partition your ideas into actionable steps, and you'll find that easier to do around 29th of May, 30th, 31st of May, during the end of the month, because that's the time we have Virgo moon and Mercury is meeting Saturn. It gives us focus. We sort of Saturn is the boundaries, right, and it's retrograde right now, so we're sort of working to get there to this fantastical thing that we might be putting the seeds of right now, and we're trying to get there in a gainful fashion. So Saturn will help us focus that and partition it into processes, into actionable steps, and it will help us go for the things that are gainful in nature. Saturn is all about going step by step, and in Aquarius it's about going for things that are gainful in nature. So it will try to create gainfulness out of this fantastical ideas or out of bound ideas that you might be having at this time. And this is not about the next 2 weeks only. You're sowing the seeds is something that you will cultivate over the course of next 6 months. We will have an eclipse, a big time lunar eclipse on 30th of November in this exact very same area of our life in Gemini itself. So it's like you're putting the seeds of something that you're going to see the first results of in November. But this is a 18-month long process of mutating out of the old and moving into something that is more enjoyable, more innocent, more back to being that child who's excited about doing things, the hope. And it's not a delusion. It becomes a delusion if we judge it harshly in the old parameters of doing things. If we judge it in the old ways of doing things, it will look it will look like we can poke holes in our own imagination and our own confidence right now if we allow ourselves to kill our own dreams. So Neptune just guides you to let yourself walk on clouds a little bit, to be able to imagine something that is greater than what we have right now. It rules miracles, it rules faith, and we all can do a little bit of that right now. So good luck for that. I'll speak about the eclipses next. I did write a very detailed note on the eclipse, which I'm going to link down in the comments. I would suggest that if you could join the Facebook group, that would be helpful, because I pretty much publish daily updates on these very long videos that I do. So might be able to break it down to the bite size that you can digest on a daily basis over there. Thank you so much and have a great month ahead. Thank you.